What's up, everyone? My name is Ethan. Welcome to Splash City. If you're new, don't forget to subscribe, and let's get into it. So today, I wanted to talk about a series preview for the second round. This is going to be a very, very fun series. We have the Denver Nuggets and the Phoenix Suns who are meeting this time. Obviously, the Nuggets coming off that victory over the Trailblazers in the first round, and the Suns knocking off the defending champion LA Lakers in their first round series. Both these teams won in 6 games. They finished off their opponents on the same night, so they're both same amount of rest going into this one. Suns have home court advantage, so let's kind of go through, talk about this series, what to expect, and who I think is going to win. I'm really excited for this one. I think this is going to be a super, super fun matchup. And these are two really, really good teams. As we know, the Nuggets were in the conference finals last year. Now they don't have Jamal Murray, unfortunately, this time around. We know the circumstances of that with the torn ACL, and that sort of, puts a little bit of a ceiling, a little bit of a cap on what the Nuggets can actually achieve this year. But they managed to, get out of the first round, and they looked pretty convincing doing it. So, they're still obviously a very good team, even without Jamal Murray. It's just, that obviously does hurt them. And then for the Suns, Chris Paul's shoulder was hampering him a little bit in that first round. The last couple of games, he's looked like he's been doing better. But really, since he heard that in game 1, in the first couple of games of that series, he was sort of up and down. So we'll see if he's, back to 100% or close to it by the time this second round starts. But he did look better over the last couple of games. And other than that, Phoenix is pretty much completely healthy. Everybody's in the lineup and everybody's playing well. Devin Booker had an awesome first round, especially that closeout game where he had nearly 50 points. So, both of these teams are operating at near peak of their powers at this point, obviously, without Jamal Murray for the Nuggets, but everybody else is in there and doing well. So, I guess Will Barton's out too, but they have, replacements in Austin Rivers and Campazzo, who are both playing super well right now. So, that's kind of the setup here. Both of these teams are playing well going into this matchup, and I think this one should be really fun. So on the Nuggets side of things, right, they're missing their starting backcourt, missing Jamal Murray, missing Will Barton, and they're starting Austin Rivers and Campazzo in their place, right? So that means that the Nuggets defense, while it was never really great all season, they haven't really been a great defensive team with this current iteration, but especially now without Will Barton and Jamal Murray in there, and obviously you're starting Campazzo, who's a small guard, and Austin Rivers, who has not been known as a good defender for his career. So their defense, specifically at the guard spots, is tough. And we saw Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum exploit that at points in the Portland series. Now, Portland's defense was also horrible, and so the Nuggets were able to score enough to keep up. But Dame had that 55-point game and double overtime and very nearly won the game for the Blazers there, but he ended up, not having quite enough in that game. But that's really going to be the theme of this series, right? Because we know the Suns backcourt and Chris Paul and Devin Booker is really, really dynamic. Booker has elevated himself into that next tier of superstardom. He's had an unbelievable playoff run against the Lakers. He played so well in that series. Specifically, that last game, that closeout game, and also in game 1, he was masterful. Had a couple of other gems in there as well. So Booker's playing at an elite level right now, and it's going to be tough for the Nuggets to stop him, as well as Chris Paul, assuming that his shoulder is back to nearly 100%. He's a guy who can score on his own right. He hasn't done a great job scoring the ball against the Lakers, but we've seen him be able to shoot. Obviously, he's a good three-point shooter. He can get to his mid-range spots, and he's pretty much automatic from those mid-range spots. So the Nuggets are going to have to do what they can to limit those two guys, but just with the personnel that they have, it's going to be tougher to be able to stop the Suns' potent offensive attack, because there is sort of a mismatch there in terms of the backcourt. But you can also look at it very much the other way, because Denver has, the guy who is most likely going to win MVP this season in Nikola Jokic has been, absolutely superb all year long. He was also great in that first round series for them against the Portland Trailblazers, and he's pretty much unguardable. You've all watched him. He does his little floaters, his little turnaround, gimpy little push shots, and his little over the shoulder hook shots, and he just kind of throws up these jumpers, and you're like, there's no way that's going to go in, and then they go in every single time. It's ridiculous. He's unguardable. You can't stop him. That's just how MVPs are, right? He's going to win the MVP for a reason. He's very, very, very tough to stop. So what can the Suns do to try to slow him down? DeAndre Ayton has done, he's held up well. He was the first overall pick a couple years ago and has really taken a leap in his third season. And he did a pretty good job on Anthony Davis in the series against the Lakers. We saw him, Anthony Davis did not play well at all in game 1 of that series. He started to turn it up a little bit in games 2 and 3, and then obviously kind of got hurt and slowed down a little bit. But I thought Ayton did an okay job against AD. And he's turned himself into a pretty solid defender. So he can sort of stay out on Jokic. Jokic. He's a guy who's mobile enough to hang with him out on the perimeter and sort of in those mid-range zones. And you know, he's a smart defender too, so he can kind of pick his spots and figure out what Jokic is trying to do. So obviously you're not going to slow him down, but I think Ayton is a guy who can do an okay job. When Ayton's out of the game though, that's going to be a little bit tougher. The Suns kind of have tried to run small a little bit recently, you know, cutting Dario Saric and Kaminsky kind of out of the rotation a little bit. So we'll have to see what they do when Ayton's on the bench, but that's going to be something to watch for Monty Williams and the coaching staff, trying to figure out what they're going to do for Jokic. And then if you want to look at some of the other matchups, you know, Phoenix has some pretty solid wing defenders that they can deploy on the Nuggets wings, whether you're talking about, you know, Aaron Gordon, Michael Porter Jr., or Paul Millsap, guys like that. You know, the Suns can really, Mikal Bridges is a very versatile defender. He has those long arms. He can stay in front of people. He's a little skinny, so he can kind of get bullied around. So we'll have to see, you know, maybe Millsap can kind of take it to him a little bit, or Aaron Gordon maybe is a little bit bigger and stronger. So we'll have to see if they kind of try to do that on Mikal Bridges, but he's just such a solid defender overall that I think he can hold his own against really any of the Nuggets wings. You can also, you know, they can also deploy Jay Crowder on those guys. He's another guy who's a solid wing defender as well. He had his moments in that Lakers series, you know, holding his own against LeBron James and Anthony Davis. Obviously, you're not going to stop those guys, but I thought he did a pretty good job. So, you know, you have those guys that you can show out on those. Cam Johnson, you know, Torrey Craig, Cam Payne. None of those guys are super great defenders. I guess Torrey Craig has that reputation a little bit. Cam Johnson's been okay in his couple of years. Cameron Payne, you know, not a great defender, but he gets those buckets, and you don't really need him to be that super solid defender. You can kind of hide him maybe on Campazzo or Austin Rivers and see what happens there. So I think the Suns are just a good enough defensive team. They should be able to make life hard on the Nuggets and force Jokic to really put the team on his back. Now, obviously, he's capable of doing that. We've seen him do it before, and we saw him do it, you know, just a couple of days ago. So Jokic is going to be the X factor in the series for sure. I mean, if he's going, he's really tough to stop. He's capable of being the best player in this series. So if he outplays Booker and Chris Paul for the entirety of this one, I think the Nuggets have a good shot here. But the Suns are overall, in my opinion, a deeper and a better and a more talented roster, especially with the injuries to Jamal Murray and Will Barton. So I just think the Suns, they match up well here. You're not going to stop Jokic, but I think they can limit him a little bit. And so I feel like they have a really good shot to advance to the conference finals. But yeah, I'm really excited for this one. I think this one's going to be a really fun series. I'm sure a lot of people are, you know, a little bit upset or disappointed that the Lakers didn't end up advancing just because they're the defending champs. You know, we're used to seeing LeBron James and Anthony Davis in the postseason every year. And you know, the Lakers are obviously a big name, big team with a lot of stars on the roster. So I'm sure it's disappointing for a lot of people to have the Lakers not be there and have the Suns be there in their place. But, you know, if you like basketball, make no mistake, you'll like this series, because these are two teams. I know they're not super big markets and the stars are not as huge as a team like the Lakers has, but you know, this is going to be a really fun series. If you enjoy basketball, I think you'll get a kick out of this one for sure, because these two teams are very deserving to be here. They've been very good and very consistent all season long. Watching Nikola Jokic and Devin Booker, two of the brightest young stars in the league, go at it. I'm really excited for this series. So I think this is going to be a super fun watch, and you know, don't lose your mind if the Lakers aren't here, because I think this one's going to be really fun. All right, so with all this in mind, you know, talking about how much I love the Suns all season long, I think they've been really fun to watch. I've made a couple of videos about them over the course of the year. I think they're really good. I was on this team very early. I wasn't super, you know, bullish on them in the preseason. I should have, you know, gone with my gut because I felt like they were going to be pretty good, but I was a little bit more conservative with my wins estimate. But they started off the season hot, and pretty early on I was like, okay, this team is for real. They're deep. You know, they've got these veterans on this roster now, and Chris Paul and Jay Crowder and guys like that. They know what they're doing. Devin Booker's hungry. He's ready to start winning playoff basketball. And I think the Suns have been this team all season long. They've been consistent. They've been, you know, going day in, day out, just winning basketball games. And so with all of this in mind, you know, given the injuries to Jamal Murray, and I feel like the Nuggets are lacking a little bit of depth and, you know, the same amount of offensive firepower that the Suns have, and they don't, you know, have the greatest defense in the world, especially at that backcourt spot. Nobody to really put on Devin Booker. I'm going to take the Suns to win this series, and I think it's going to go, you know, 5 or 6 games. I don't think this one's going to go 7. I think the Suns are pretty clearly a better team here, and I think they're going to show that in this series. So, you know, part of me wants to go 5, part of me wants to go 6. I think I'll go with 5 games. I'll take the Suns in 5. I really think it's going to be that. It's not going to be necessarily quick work. I think we'll have a couple of close ones in here, but I just trust Phoenix a lot more than I do Denver at this point, and so I'm going to take the Suns in 5. But yeah, that's all I have on this series. Let me know what your prediction is for that one. I would love to hear your thoughts down below. But yeah, like I said at the top of the video, if you're new, don't forget to subscribe, leave a like, ring the bell if you want to, and I'll see you guys in the next one.